There is a fatal mistake that destroys more ambitions than lack of talent, lack of money, or lack of opportunity combined. It is a psychological trap that feels like progress, but is actually the architect of your failure. Think of the last time you set a massive goal, a new business, a physical transformation, a complete reconstruction of your life. You felt the surge of energy. And what was the first thing you did? You told someone. You posted it. You announced your arrival before you had even taken the first step. And in that moment, you likely felt good. You felt validated. But notice what happened in the weeks that followed. The drive vanished. The discipline crumbled. The vision rotted. This is not a coincidence. This is biology. By announcing your intentions, you triggered a neurological mechanism that signaled to your brain that the work was already done. You traded the outcome for the applause. We are told that accountability is key. We are told to speak our truth and manifest our goals by sharing them with the world. This is a lie. It is a comforting fiction designed for the weak, for those who require external validation to feel alive. Today, we are not talking about superstition. We are dissecting the neuroscience of motivation and the psychological phenomenon known as social reality. We are going to look at the research of Peter Gollwitzer and the hard biology of dopamine to understand why the man who speaks rarely achieves, and why the man who achieves remains silent. You will learn why your brain sabotages you the moment you open your mouth, and how to reverse this process to become a force of nature, a man who moves in silence and lets the results speak. Welcome back to The Grounded Man. If you are ready to master your neurology, reject the need for cheap validation, and stop being a slave to your own biology, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We are building a brotherhood of the 1% who understand that true power is self-contained. To understand why you fail, you must first understand the currency of your brain. Dopamine. Most men misunderstand dopamine. They believe it is a reward for achievement. It isn't. Dopamine is the fuel for pursuit. It is the biological chemical designed to keep you hunting, keep you working, and keep you moving toward a reward you have not yet attained. The rule is simple. Dopamine is generated by the anticipation of the reward, not just the reward itself. Here is the neurological trap. When you visualize a goal, say, building $1 million company or achieving a Greek god physique, your brain creates a state of cognitive tension. This is a painful, necessary gap between who you are and who you want to be. This tension is the engine of high performance. It drives you to close the gap. But when you announce this goal to your friends, or worse, to the internet, and they respond with praise, wow, that's amazing. You're going to crush it. I'm so proud of you. Your brain receives a premature spike of dopamine. Listen closely. Your brain cannot distinguish between the social validation of the announcement and the actual satisfaction of the achievement. By receiving praise for the intention, your brain registers the task as socially complete. You tricked your own neurology. You cashed in the check before you did the work. The cognitive tension, that driving force, that hunger, evaporates. You feel satisfied. You feel good. And that feeling is the death of your ambition. That is not strength. That is a biological short circuit. You are training your mind to seek the cheap high of talk rather than the delayed gratification of execution. You are becoming a dopamine addict, begging for scraps of validation for things you haven't even done yet. Settings. This is not just theory. This is a documented psychological fact known as the substitution effect. Let's look at the data. As far back as 1926, the founder of social psychology, Kurt Lewin, called this substitution. But it was in 2009 that Peter Gollwitzer at NYU proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Here is the study. 163 people were given a complex task to achieve a specific personal goal. Half of them were told to keep their goals silent. The other half were told to announce their goals to the group and have them acknowledged. They were given 45 minutes to work. They could stop at any time. The results were terrifyingly clear. The group that kept their mouths shut worked for the entire 45 minutes. When asked, they said they felt they had a long way to go to achieve the goal. Their hunger remained intact. The group that announced their goals, they quit on average after only 33 minutes. And here is the fatal mistake. When asked, they reported feeling that they were much closer to achieving the goal, despite doing significantly less work. This is what Gollwitzer calls identity goals. When you want to be a certain type of man, a founder, an athlete, a stoic, you construct an identity in your mind. To make that identity real, you need symbols. The ultimate symbol is the reality of the achievement. But conversation is also a symbol. When you tell people, "I am going to start a business," and they nod and respect you for it, your brain accepts that social acknowledgement as a substitute for the reality. You have constructed a social reality where you are already that man. Why would you wake up at 4 a.m. and grind in the dark if your brain already believes you've won? You wouldn't. The brain follows the path of least resistance. If talking gives you the status you crave, you will talk. If only suffering gives you the status you crave, you will suffer. When you share your goals, you are choosing the path of the child. You are choosing the illusion of status over the reality of power. Now, I know what the modern self-help gurus will say. They will scream about accountability partners. They will tell you that you need to broadcast your goals so that the fear of public embarrassment keeps you on track. We must make a critical distinction here. There is a difference between strategic accountability and performative validation. Strategic accountability is telling one mentor, someone who is ahead of you, someone who does not care about your feelings, exactly what you will do, so they can correct your course. They do not give you praise, they give you pressure. That is useful, but that is not what you are doing. When you post on Instagram, when you tell your drinking buddies, when you talk to your girlfriend about your grand plans, you are not seeking pressure. You are seeking admiration. That is neediness. Nothing signals low value like a man who needs a round of applause before he has even entered the arena. A man who is truly grounded, a man who possesses what the Stoics called autarkeia, self-sufficiency, does not need the world to agree with his vision. Think of the unmoved mover. If your drive is dependent on the external validation of others, your drive is also vulnerable to their criticism or their indifference. If you need their applause to start, you will quit when they stop clapping. True abundance is working in the dark. It is the ability to hold a vision so clearly in your own mind that the outside world is irrelevant until the work is done. When you keep your goals silent, you create a pressure cooker inside your psyche. The world sees you as you are, but you know who you are becoming. This discrepancy creates a psychological dissonance, a war in your mind. The only way to resolve that war, the only way to prove your new identity, is to execute. You must force your brain to understand. There is no reward in the announcement. There is only reward in the result. So, how do we reverse this? How do you retrain a brain that has been addicted to the cheap dopamine of talking? Here is the protocol. Step 1. The 48-hour containment rule. When you have a new idea, a new goal, or a burst of inspiration, you will feel an overwhelming urge to share it. This is the dopamine itching to be released. Do not speak. For the first 48 hours, you are forbidden from telling a single soul. Instead, take that agitated energy and channel it immediately into the first step of execution. If you want to write a book, write the first chapter. If you want to lose weight, throw out the junk food. Convert the potential energy into kinetic energy, not sound waves. Step 2. Embrace the void. You must learn to love the feeling of being misunderstood. When you are working on something great in silence, people might think you are lazy or stagnant or lost. Let them. Marcus Aurelius said, "It never ceases to amaze me." We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Stop caring about their current perception of you. Use their underestimation of you as fuel. Step 3. Define done. You are allowed to speak only when the result is undeniable. You do not talk about trying to get in shape. You talk about it when you have lost the 20 pounds. You do not talk about starting a company. You talk about it when the first check clears. Until then, you are a ghost. Visual, cinematic shot of the host standing up and walking to a window. Step 4. The inner scorecard. Shift your validation source from external to internal. At the end of the day, look at the work you did. Did you execute? If yes, that is your dopamine. That is your reward. You must become a closed-loop system where your self-respect is generated by your own actions, not by the likes, comments, or good jobs of people who have never built anything. The world is full of men who talk. It is full of men who announce their plans and celebrate victories they have not yet won. That is why the world is full of mediocrity. You have a choice. You can have the cheap dopamine of the announcement, or you can have the deep, lasting power of the achievement. You cannot have both. Kill the need for validation. Blind them with your results, not your plans. I'll see you in the next video. Stay grounded.